What's up, friends? Today we're gonna take a look at a game where Alireza Firouzja tried to put together the fool's checkmate against Hikaru Nakamura. The game starts off with a king's pawn move, pawn e5, and here Firouzja plays queen to h5, hitting this pawn. Nakamura defends it, and here comes bishop c4, aiming to scholar's checkmate Hikaru with queen takes f7 on the next turn. Now, while at first it may seem like only complete beginners would ever use this scholar's mate against you, the reality is completely different. In fact, in this position, moving for white their queen to either f3 or h5 is extremely common, and the average rating of players who play queen h5 here is 1400, not like 600 as you'd expect, 1400. Therefore, you definitely need to know how to counter that, and let's see how Nakamura did that. Well, first he played pawn to g6, kicking the queen back. Here comes queen to f3, insisting on the scholar's checkmate. And most players play knight f6, which is perfectly fine. There's definitely nothing wrong with this move. But Hikaru played the move which I like a lot as well. It's the move pawn f5. And it comes as a complete shocker at first, because it opens up the king, white seems to be able to grab the pawn, and it looks just suicidal for black. But in fact, there is a catch here. If white is seduced by this pawn, you then play knight to d4, hitting the queen, as well as this pawn on c2, and from there you're going to fork the king and the rook. And if white wants to insist on his checkmating attempt and play queen d5, trying to, go either queen takes f7 or queen takes e5, then those tricksters are usually going to play that move. You continue with queen e7, covering the f7 square, and now white has to pay the price. Their attack is over. Now knight takes c2 is still coming, and on top of that you're also threatening knight to f6, attacking the queen. Your pawns are ready to go forward if necessary, c6 kicking the queen, then d5 hitting the bishop. Now the bishop will come out and grab this pawn, and you can see that the position quickly turns out in your favor, and white's queen just dances around while you keep developing, keep attacking, and you quickly overtake it. So that's the variation that you definitely may wish to check out. In fact, I've got a separate video where I analyze the greater details. If you're interested, you can check it out later. Firouzja is one of the best players in the world. He didn't fall for this trap. He instead played knight to e2, which is a correct move, covering this d4 square and not letting black to enter there. Here, black goes knight to f6, kind of once again even provoking white to grab this pawn. So what's the trick here? Well, at first it looks like if white takes it, they're going to win the pawn, because if you recapture, white grabs the pawn with the queen. But the reality is you're not going to recapture, you're going to counter-strike with the move pawn d5, hitting this bishop. And once it moves away, then your bishop is ready to recapture this pawn, getting this very nice position at the end of this. So white does not really want to do that, and instead Firouzja played pawn to d3. And here Nakamura played knight a5, which makes a lot of sense, because this bishop is very active, does not let black to castle, controls this diagonal, and you'd wish to trade it off, so knight a5 makes perfect sense. Another good idea for black in this position is to push his pawn to f4 and gain some space there. And in fact, in many positions here, in many games, while blunder that after this move pawn to d6, you're ready to play bishop g4 and to blunder this, to capture this queen on f3. Very often white blunders that. And that's how black's success rate here is very huge. But even if white doesn't blunder, your position is still good. Coming back to the actual game, Hikaru played knight a5, going after that bishop. White played knight c3, and here black traded off this bishop, and finally he decided to play d6 and to defend this pawn on f5 so that white cannot capture it. Still, white played bishop g5, trying to pin the knight and do something against it, making use of this pin. So black played h6, kicking this bishop away, and the bishop is forced to take, which is what Alireza did, because if it goes back, then it will be trapped there on the king side like this. So that's not what white wants, and instead white has to basically either go back or trade it off. So white traded it off and played knight d5, another attacking move, hitting the queen as well as this pawn on c7. Therefore black played queen to f7, and here white castled. At first it may seem like white's position is pretty good, he's ahead in development, but in fact after c6 the only white's active piece has to go back, knight to c3, and here black actually can snatch this pawn on c4, which is something that he did. And black has this just really strong control over the center and two bishops, and positionally black is just completely dominant. Plus he's up a pawn, so basically black is already having a winning position. Anyway, I tried to exchange here and play knight g3. He's still trying to seek some attacking opportunities. Currently this pawn is attacked, therefore black slided their queen back to defend it. And here after rook to e1, Nakamura did his best to violate all the opening principles and played pawn to h5. So far, if you look at black's moves, it seems like his queen is dancing around and he's pushing pawns, which is the opposite of what classical chess books tell you to do, right? To develop your pieces in an opening and to castle. So what's the trick here? Well, the point is black's avalanche of pawns here in the center of the board is so strong that white can't really do anything. He can't move his knights anywhere, right? These pawns are just controlling everything. And that makes black's position so powerful that you can do whatever you want, basically. And h5 aims to play h4, kick this knight away. Also, it provides this additional square for the bishop to be developed and to attack the king. So white played king to b1. Here Nakamura finally decided to correct mistakes of his youth to develop. Played bishop e6. I played knight e2, anticipating black to play h4. He decided to move his knight away instantaneously. Black castled. And now black basically finished his development and white has nothing. White played queen e3, hoping to grab this pawn. Black played king to b8, f4. Alireza is actually a very creative player. He's always finding some interesting opportunities to add the fire, to the game and to keep his attack going. And here after f4, he's trying to challenge the center, but e4 keeps it closed. And after here, white played pawn to a3. Not really sure what it does, but white doesn't have that much to do anyway. Bishop g7, continuing his development. Rook d2, pawn d5. Now this avalanche of pawns is ready to go forward. d4 at some point will be coming. Black can't do that right now, but he can prepare it. Now rook to d1, white is desperately trying to hold on to these squares so that black can't advance there. And black played queen c7, maybe aiming for queen b6, controlling more, adding more control to this diagonal. White tried knight d4, hitting the bishop, so it slides back. Knight b3, white is still trying to put together some attack on the queen side. Black played h4, and here comes knight a4. He wants to go knight to c5, and black stops that with a move pawn to b6. Knight can no longer go there. Knight d4, white is desperately trying to jump around with his knights, trying to create some threats, but it never works. Pawn c5, kicking this knight away. And after knight b5 and queen c6, white actually resigned here, because now these two knights are hanging. d4 is coming, very strong, and generally speaking, these pawns are ready to march forward, and white could never really make his attack real. So that's how black completely devastated white's color's checkmate attempt, and that's how you can do that as well. If you'd like to know the most brutal way to punish this color's mate attempt, check out this video. I published it not too long ago and it got almost 1 million views already. And if you want to master positional chess, feel free to check out this free masterclass by clicking the link over there. Keep crushing it, and I'll talk to you soon.